What up, friends? I'm lost and I can't get up. But today we are going to be reviewing Tyler the Creator's newest album, Call Me If You Get Lost. Tyler is, of course, one of the biggest rap artists around right now, and this is his sixth album overall in his discography. After the fantastic Igor album that he put out back in 2019, I think everybody was curious on what sound is Tyler going to pursue next. Surprisingly, it seems like he's been taking inspiration from almost all of his previous records, combining them into a sort of victory lap sound, albeit not solely produced by him this time. However, as we'll soon discover, this sort of victory lap can also hide some of Tyler's darker and more personal problems. Sir Baudelaire is a fantastic intro that sets the tone of the album perfectly. It feels very Flower Boy in the lazy guitar and Tyler's very laid-back flows. The production has an elegant sound to it, and I actually really liked the sort of interactions that Tyler and DJ Drama have, not only on this track, but throughout the entire record, too. They add a very fun sense of energy and a sort of contrast to Tyler's more low-key cadence on a lot of these songs. Corso is a great transition from the previous track, and I really like this piano-focused beat that's going on here. It actually sounds like something that Pusha T would hop on or something, but Tyler does make it uniquely his own. It has some really cool texture at points, mixing that delicate piano with some gritty bass and spacey synths. The dynamic between DJ Drama and Tyler largely continues, however, under these braggadocious boasts about selling out Madison Square Garden, Tyler starts to reveal the unravelings of his relationships and how he struggles to get fulfilled in that aspect of his life. And this will soon be expanding throughout the rest of the record into a pretty enticing and interesting narrative. Lemonhead, in contrast, is a more bombastic track with those trumpets and darker bass lines. It's kind of like how Who Dat Boy was the song to break up the glamour of Flower Boy's tracklist. It fits really well here too, and 42 Doug's flows actually benefit the hype nature of this song, especially when they're flexing all the cool shit that they have. It's short and sweet, but honestly that's what makes it fun, and I'm glad it doesn't overstay its welcome. WUSYANAME is the lead single and by far one of the best tracks on the album. There's a super soulful beat, however the track doesn't lose Tyler's sense of humor. You look malnourished isn't my first choice in a pickup line, but hey, I'm not Tyler, to be fair. The background vocals are warm and evoke a summer vibe, and Youngboy and Ty Dolla $ign actually fit this shimmering beat pretty nicely. It's an interesting tale of unrequited love, showing how Tyler's success doesn't mean that he can have whatever he wants. I also find it interesting because it implies that Tyler is actually bisexual, whereas it seemed like he was more gay in Igor, and I think it actually enhances Igor's journey of self-discovery too. Seemingly this is where he ended up, and Igor was a good transitional piece. The abrasive beat on Lumberjack really brings his call out to his haters to the forefront. Tyler is flexing on all of them, showing off his cars, his house, and his ties to other artists. There's also a more endearing and humorous side to this anecdote, showing how he helped his mom out and how his mom's proud of him, so that's all that really matters. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it ends up pretty groovy at the end of the day. It's a pretty interesting combination of sounds. Hot Wind Blows has another sick piano-focused beat with a sort of pan flute sample that adds to that soulful sound. Tyler's flows are smooth, and Lil Wayne was the perfect choice for this airy and free-sounding beat. Them hyping each other up was a really cool touch, and it's just a super vibey and chill song overall that has its place on this record. Masa is an interesting instrumental shift, opting for a more lo-fi and almost trip-hop aesthetic at times. I do like how tongue-in-cheek Tyler is being here, especially in acknowledging Cherry Bomb's less polished production. It's also a pretty cool introspective song too, him looking back on his life and acknowledging how Yonkers kind of put him on the map. The chilled beat is a great backdrop to these moments, along with him discussing his seemingly commitment issues, relationship troubles, and general paranoia. Manifesto is just Tyler unapologetically being Tyler. The beat is super smooth, yet it also has that odd dark energy that was prevalent on a lot of Tyler's older material. Domo's flow is just fantastic, and I think he does a great job in explaining how society can negatively impact African Americans while also hyping himself up. Tyler echoes similar sentiments, expressing how he just doesn't care about other people's opinions on how he doesn't act, speak up, or protest in ways that they would like him to. He's all about hyping himself up, his family up, his friends up, and that's his form of activism. And I feel like no line in this song sums up this attitude of Tyler's better than "Internet brings up old lyrics like I hide that shit. What's your address? I could probably send you a copy, bitch." Sweet, I Thought You Wanted to Dance is a glitzy and shimmering funk and soul-driven two-parter of a song. It's tradition for Tyler at this point, and this one honestly delivers. The first Sweet half is vibey as hell, and Tyler's singing voice actually isn't that bad here. The synth bass and twinkling synths are a great soundscape, especially when they combine with that sample that floats around the second verse. Brent Faiyaz is a fitting complement to Tyler, and he just flows and vibes along that beat just as well. The I Thought You Wanted to Dance portion is a bit weaker and not as lush, but it does get the job done. It's kind of generic in its tropical instrumentation and gets a bit too elevator music for my tastes, but honestly, it's not too bad. The last half or so of the record, however, does feel noticeably weaker than the first half. Before, really only Run It Up was the weak link in the track list. However, now that we're getting to the interludes that don't really add much that isn't already in the main songs, the sound just gets kind of muddied by this point. Rise and Safari are fine, but they just don't do a lot new at this point in the record, and honestly, they're just not as fleshed out as a lot of the previous songs. The former is pretty chill with its focus on the drums, but it sounds a bit flat overall. The latter has a pretty interesting sound with its horns, bass, and background vocals. However, it just doesn't really end the album with as much of an impact as I would have liked. Juggernaut is one of the two songs that I can describe as a least favorite on the album. The intro showed some promise, however it quickly turns into one of the most out of left field instrumentals on the entire project. Its heavy trap-focused beat sticks out like a sore thumb, and it just does not fit this album's aesthetic at all. It also stands out because it's kind of doing what Lemonhead did, being that hype track that breaks up the track list. However, Lemonhead actually fit the album's sound. It would maybe fit better on a different project, but as it stands, it's an overly bombastic, bass-driven song that isn't even very interesting to begin with. Pharrell and Uzi also don't really do much to tie everything together, and the braggadocious lyrics are done way better on previous tracks of the record. Unfortunately, Wilshire is my other least favorite track. I say unfortunately because Wilshire is kind of the cornerstone of this entire album. It sums up the themes and the narrative and kind of just is the last breath of the record. The spoken word storytelling is interesting and a nice change of pace for the first 4 minutes. This song is far too long, and Tyler's monotone style of speaking is way too boring for 8.5 minutes worth of content here, and it actually takes away from the emotional narrative since Tyler doesn't sound very interested in what's going on here, so why should I? The beat is also way too simple of a loop to justify this runtime. There's not even any switch-ups in the flows, in the beat, anything, which makes all of this even worse. Tyler's mic quality also isn't really the best, and the popping that you can hear can kind of grate on you if you end up focusing on it. Tyler's sort of home-wrecking nature and tendencies on this track are also kind of iffy. However, it does at least make for an entertaining narrative if he could actually express it properly in the vocals, but unfortunately he doesn't despite the good sense of storytelling. I don't know, man. This track is just too boring for how important it's supposed to be. Despite not ending as strongly as I would have hoped, Call Me If You Get Lost does feel like a sort of victory lap for Tyler, pulling inspiration from all of his previous projects yet refining them with his current experience. That first half is seriously strong, with some great features and instrumentals that tie everything together really well. The lyrics also do a great job in balancing Tyler's success with his personal troubles. It's a victory lap, but that doesn't mean Tyler gets everything that he wants. it just kind of runs out of steam by the end. Maybe a sign that Tyler should focus on a more concise set of tracks, even if it's maybe not as fleshed out of a narrative as he would like. I feel like leaving people wanting more is better than making people feel like this is going on for way too long. Overall, I'm feeling a decent 8 on Call Me If You Get Lost. Of course, we do have to talk about album covers on this show, and this is a really great album cover. I love how tongue-in-cheek it is with the sort of travel license, the passport aesthetic, and how he's just going all over the world, being successful, while also struggling in all the places that he ends up in, too, whether it's with his love life or what have you. It captures Tyler's sense of humor. I think it just has a really nice aesthetic to it with the pure white background and the cream-colored, aesthetic of the passport travel license. It's a cool photo of him too. I like how DIY it can be when it comes to the writing. It's a good album cover. I like it. So what did you guys think about Tyler's newest album? Is this his best project yet? Or did you also feel it kind of runs out of steam and Tyler should maybe focus on being more concise next time around? Let me know, and until the next one, farewell.